So good morning, everybody. I'm Victoria Johnston. I work for Frazer Jones and I'll be facilitating this webinar this morning. Just be aware we are recording it, so if anyone does miss pieces, we can forward that afterwards. So I'd like to introduce you to our two speakers today who are super experts in their niche areas. Kate Temple-Brown is the co-founder of the Opportunity Group, which is a talent consultancy for apprenticeships. What's interesting about Kate is she has worked in-house in early careers for years, so she really understands what it means to be strategic in early careers, talent attraction and development. She's also an all-round apprenticeship levy guru. And we also have James, welcome James Adeleke, who is the chief executive of a charity he founded, Generation Success. It's a social mobility charity that supports young people in achieving their career potential. He has lots of video content online, so check that out. He's an inspiring leader for young people, but also for businesses to help them level the playing field. Kate and James are going to explain a bit about this Career Builder program and talk about the social impact of it. So we'll have some Q&A at the end. Let's get going. So Kate, could you explain to us what the difference is between this Career Builder program and the traditional school leaver apprenticeship scheme that we're more familiar with?
Yes, so hello everyone. We're going to crack on and get straight to the meat because we've got lots to share. But really, the usual way an apprenticeship is created in an organisation is part of a longer term career pathway for young people, bringing in often different populations into your organisation, and where we absolutely agree with that in principle. What is often a challenge is that organisations fear that when they're bringing school leavers into their organisation, they need to, at that point of entry, be able to project forward full career development pathways for these young people. And where in law or accountancy, that is absolutely a clear piece, and you can do a degree apprenticeship for years and years and years, and it's a really great way of bringing a new population into your organisation. This proposition is slightly, we believe, more flexible than that, and is lower risk both on the side of the organisation and the young person. So in the time that both James and I have been speaking to young people during the pandemic and before, and also speaking to organisations about their understanding that they want to do something in these times of change and lack of opportunity for young people because of the pandemic, what we've realised is we can take the elements of an apprenticeship programme, which is a programme that is exactly 12 months and 1 day long in order for it to be fully funded. And then what we've done is we've taken the hit of adding at no extra cost to the organisation more pastoral care, the engagement, recruitment and selection of young people, and also the creation of a programme with additional events and support by working really closely with Generation Success. So what we've created is a shorter term intervention, which is potentially almost more like, for those of you in early careers, an industrial placement year-long programme that we believe will change the lives of young people who have left school thinking either that they could just scrape by to get to university, or that they were going to go travelling or earn money to go to university, or that they were going to get a job, that now many of those options just don't exist.
So there'll be far more young people looking for opportunities because they can't take that gap year or go and work in a bar in Spain for a year or whatever, or they might not want to spend X amount of money on a university course that's run remotely for a certain amount of time. It's not really living the university experience as such.
Absolutely. The young people I've spoken to are either deferring their degree placement for a year if they already have one, or typically, if they are from a lower socio-economic background, they thought when they were making plans and applying for university that they could potentially get to a point of being able to afford and take the funding and the grants, and and their family could support them to get to university. Now, particularly in lower socio-economic houses, the low paid roles are 50% more likely to have been made redundant completely, not furloughed. And also their own economic outlook as a family or as a person has completely changed based on the pandemic. So they can no longer afford to go to university now, even if they still want to go.
And I'd like to add, what I feel makes this program special to what's been out there and previously, or what's currently out there, is several factors. So one, there's a reason why there's £3.3 billion of unspent levy funding out there. And that's because there's a lot of employers who just don't know what to do. So part of this process is actually utilizing our expertise to put the program in place for you so that you can just focus on having that talented young person in your workplace. The other aspect of why this is so different is, whilst the apprenticeship levy has been fantastic and the apprenticeship scheme has been fantastic, we all recognize that more can be done. In terms of diversity in apprentices, we've come a long way from 2002 when there were just 5.3% apprentices were made up of people from Black ethnic minority backgrounds. In 2017, that went up to 11.2%. Now, when you put that into context of the UK population, 2017 / 2018, 87.2% of apprentices were from white backgrounds. However, however, in the general population, white people make up 84.6% of the population, which means actually more can be done to increase diversity within apprentices. And the partnership between us allows that to happen, because Generation Success is one, a social mobility organization, but also has access to diverse talent pools. And when one of the biggest issues is on getting diverse talent to apply, you need to find more ways to extend your attraction mechanisms. And this is one of those ways. Not only that, but we do put a lot of effort into supporting the applicants before they actually apply. So we do things to train them up, but when they apply, we also make sure that each applicant has the same information, and of course they can look elsewhere for additional guidance. But for us, it's important that applicants showcase their potential and their skill sets rather than what they've been trained by their parents to know about the industry. So and by doing that, it means that there's more equality in that recruitment process, so that we can hope to get more diversity in terms of our talent pool for this program.
Yeah, and just to talk about the program very briefly, what we've done is we've added an employability bootcamp at the front end of the program. So we really are throwing the net wide to people from all backgrounds with all academic qualification levels, because we know that the programs that we'll be putting them on are so supportive that we can go and focus on potential, motivation, resilience, all those behaviors that everybody says are really important to being successful in role, and de-emphasize academics. So that what we want to do is create a program for these young people that we literally think will change their lives, in terms of to give them a year of work experience and a qualification that will be recognized nationally, a foundation skill. So, and all the pieces that we've had challenges over the years from organizations, we believe we've worked really hard to take those away for you, so that all you need to do is agree in principle that this would be something you would like to do, and we can work with you to make it happen.
Okay, why, and James, why now? I mean, this is, it's logical, it makes sense, but we're already in mid-July. Why not wait until next year, 2021, be more considered about it and start the apprenticeship schemes next year? Why is 2020 so important?
Well, definitely. I mean, for me, personally, this period reminds me of when I started social action. You know, back in 2011, when we had the London riots, when we had a recession. You know, young people were protesting, and they were saying that it was a disenfranchised generation. I feel that still, even though the BLM movement started, and even though George Floyd died, now it feels like a century ago if he died. There are still young people who are angry about that, want organizations to do more. That's one thing. Secondly, you know, with COVID, we're hearing that this is the worst, they have the worst job prospects since the Great Depression. And we can't, it's now the time for organizations to step up. You know, if I love my stats, so let me put this, let me put into statistics. The Association of College Universities predicted that half of this year's universities and college leavers, around 100,000 young people, 18 to 25, will struggle to find meaningful employment as a result of COVID. Now, imagine if that was your child, imagine if that was your nephew, you'd want to do what you can to create opportunities for them. And when we look at the history of the apprenticeship scheme, we know that more can be done. And there's no better time than right now to create innovations in the system. If you wait until next year when things have calmed down, there will be no incentive really for you as an organization to see how you can do things better. There is a danger that we'll go back to what we were doing before, but we can't do that. When there's £3 billion of unspent levy funding, if your organization is not utilizing that full fund, then you need to think about how you can tap into that resource, because that resource can create more jobs. And in effect, with the apprenticeship levy and the aspect of apprenticeships being focused on making sure that the workforce is fit for purpose to add value to your business, you should be looking at how you can utilize it.
Yeah, and I think the social aspect is very important in terms of moving swiftly, but there's also another more business-led scenario that is happening right now, which is that the digital skills gap is growing at such a fast pace, and there are organisations who've made business and digital transformation changes in the last 4 months more than they've done in the last 20 years. And what we are also hearing from organisations is that they don't have the digital skills and capability that they need to be successful in the next 1, 3, 5 years. So the other piece that we've done is the programs that we've chosen are software developer level 4, data analyst level 3, digital community manager level 4, and associate project manager level 4. And the reason we've chosen those is because we believe that they are also skills that you could bring into your organization that would add value. And what we are doing in terms of the way we've set up the program is we're front loading, particularly in the software developer level 4 program, the technical capability workshops to a 8-week boot camp at the beginning of the program, so that by Christmas, if you bring someone into your organization in September or October, you will have more software developer capability in your organization. These young people, not only will you be doing them the service of creating opportunities, they will be adding value to your bottom line by the beginning of 2021, from a process perspective, from a digital skills perspective. And we were talking about this before we went on air, and one of the issues we know is that optically, lots of organizations are really worried that if they are in a recruitment moratorium and you're in the middle of a big restructure, how can you be seen to be bringing in new people into your organization? And we're saying that we believe that this is addressing a business need of digital and capability skills gaps that you will currently have. And we can be bold and say, we believe that every organization on this call will have a digital skills gap in the next 18 months. And this is how you will be able to, in a very cost-effective way, look at minimizing that to prepare yourself to be successful in the future. And one of the things that Alok Sharma said when he was speaking last month was that the cost of inaction right now will be more than the cost of action. And we know that it's not just about money. I've been doing this for too long to realize that the £3 billion in a pot that people aren't spending is not enough of a driver, because you want to be strategic, you want to do the right thing at the right time, but we know that there's also an opportunity cost. And so what we've really done is work hard to minimize the opportunity cost. And also, these roles will be brand new created roles that you will get £2,000 per person from the government as an apprenticeship bonus for. And we realise you're not doing it to get that money, but if that assuages any additional headcount or support that you need internally, then that is a great message, and we can help you with business cases and internal influencing, because we also know that it's never as cut and dried as let's just bring 10 people into our organisation in the next 3 months. We know it's a big ask, which is why we're taking the hit on all the wrapper around the programme, so that we can minimise the pain to you to be able to say, yes, we want to do this.
Definitely, I totally agree with that, and you know, and the whole aspect of we will help you create that business case for you internally, and we talked about optics, but that can be managed as well. I mean, think about it this way: prior to COVID, 80% of millennials considered employers' policies on diversity when decided which company to work for. Now, the reason why we're calling this legacy, we talked about the title of this webinar is around legacy, is what will our legacy be? You know, when you talk to your workforce, and when you're trying to appeal to a talented future group of diverse talent, do you want your legacy to be one that we during COVID we innovated, we looked at new ways to create new opportunities so that no one can be left behind, and this is a great opportunity for that to happen. And also talk about legacy, I also had a meeting with the business secretary last week, and it was a great one-to-one meeting, and we left that meeting with around 7 actions as to how the government and us can work together to create more equality as we recover during the recession. I mean, one of the core ways we can do that is by creating opportunities and making sure that we can reach as many sections of our community as possible, and that partnership with us can make that happen.
It's interesting to get that view of social impact, James, because I think so few people realise the stats involved and the positive impact it can have on young people and their lives as well. I think one of the, and we'll go to Q&A at the end here, but I just want to dip into talking about the managed service piece, Kate, because I think cost can sometimes be an issue, or it seems that that's the go-to answer for this, even if it's not really the issue. But it is that the lack of understanding around the apprenticeship levy, how to utilise it, and also where do you even start? You know, we don't take school leavers as a rule, we don't really need them. We probably will have capability gaps in our digital areas, but can you talk to us about why this is particularly easy for people to do? So much of the pain is taken away by the opportunity group.
So what we've decided as the opportunity group is that we will do what we typically, being completely transparent, what we would typically charge commercially as a consultancy spend to manage a program for a client. So typically the apprenticeship levy would only cover the cost of delivery of a program. And if an organisation wanted to have support in finding young people, engaging with people to go on to the programme, and additional mentoring and pastoral care, then that would be an additional cost. But what we've decided is that this, from our perspective, this is our legacy, that we want to support that. We are applying for loans at the moment from Department of Work and Pensions, who we are working very closely with, because this is part of their aims to build and make sure that we are creating opportunities post-COVID. But so that will be covered by the cost of your apprenticeship levy. And if you are an SME and not an apprenticeship levy payer, then we have coordinated and worked with organisations who are willing to share their levy as a levy transfer. So this year there was an agreement that those with large levy pots that they knew they couldn't spend, that they would be able to share up to 25% of their unspent levy funding with non-levy paying organisations. So we will also broker and organise the administration of that process as well. So we really are trying to support the organisations in everything other than the pieces that an employer needs to do to make an apprenticeship, which is to give the young person a contract for the length of the programme, which is between 13 and 14 months, which we can organise internally, to give them a salary, which we have determined would be £18,000 in London, potentially less outside of London, could be 16. And also to give them a line manager who would be the person who would be their coordinator to help them apply the learning on the job. And I know that super simplifies it because I've worked in early careers and it's never just the case of having a line manager, because realistically, you'll probably have someone in your organization who will be our stakeholder manager as well from a supplier perspective. But what we believe is if you do have at least 10 learners on your program, so you're getting £20,000 as your bonus, that could go some way to pay for that headcount if you needed an additional headcount, or you needed to carve out some time from someone who's already in a team that you believe would be relevant to this population. So I think, and we never will have thought of every issue, but we really are working to make it feel like a managed service, exactly to your point, Victoria, that you are part of a bigger program. Just to talk really briefly about the platform that we've created for this, it's sitting on a Holaroo platform, who have been very well known in organising these large, multifaceted, multi-client programs. And the reason we've created a platform called Career Builder is the idea is that young people will have an experience that they can improve their employability skills. We've got Skills Builder within Career Builder. So if they want to do additional work on themselves, they want to find out about themselves, we're working with a profiling tool to ensure that they can understand their talents, and we can match their talents to the roles on the 4 programs that we've discussed. And if they don't right now match one of the opportunities that we can give them on the Career Builder program, then we're working with Youth Employment UK so that we can find other opportunities for them now, or they can work on themselves for a few months to upskill themselves so they are ready for other programs. So what we hope is that, although we're calling it Generation 2020, that it will start now to really make a difference to the opportunity landscape of the 230,000 young people who have been effectively displaced by COVID-19. But by the way, we're not expecting opportunities for all 230,000 of them, so don't worry. But what we really want to do is have this as an ongoing portal of opportunity for young people to help them. And then phase 2 will be, we'll go to different communities that have been disproportionately affected, such as people who are leaving prisons, young people who have been working for a while and their roles have just disappeared because they were in hospitality or they're in retail. So we've got very ambitious plans for Career Builder, but right now we really want to focus on Generation 2020 and help this population who we believe are in crisis right now.
Definitely. And I love the fact that we've teamed up with levy payers who are willing to transfer that levy fund down to small suppliers, because, you know, when you think about in March, £300 million was sent back to the government of unspent levy. That is a travesty. And for organizations watching this webinar, you know, there are a few questions that you should ask yourself as well. It's, you know, one, do we have a resource or expertise gap? And the reason why I ask that is you can think about how you can use this apprentice levy, the young people from this, to get them equipped to fill those gaps in your expertise within your workforce, to make your company stronger for the recovery. The second is, do you have unspent levy that you can be utilizing? Like, you know, are you maximizing your levy funding right now? And then you should be asking yourself, you know, what key challenges is your organization facing when looking at how to improve your diversity? there's so many questions that you should be asking yourself. That we can help you when we looking to build this case study, but all this will enable you to go back and build and have a strong business case for the relevant people within your organization. And we're willing to work with you because it's all about, as Kate said, making sure we can leave a positive legacy and create opportunities for this generation, 2020.
In that thread, James, my concern is, are we privatising a public sector issue here? Is this not something that the government should be sort of sweeping up a bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's everyone's responsibility, it's every organization's, every department's responsibility to do something during this period. The government are trying their best. They've put together, policies. They've created incentives to try to invigorate more growth, more innovation, more jobs in industry. But ultimately, employers are the biggest employers are employers. They are the job creators. They are the organizations who are driving our economy forward. And it takes both government and industry to really create change here. And we all know how slow government can be, but business have the opportunity to really drive and accelerate opportunities for Generation 2020.
So an example, I totally agree that it's not privatizing a public sector problem. Yeah. What we are doing is addressing a problem as a community, as a collaboration. I think the government talks a lot about apprenticeship guarantee and opportunity guarantee, but they can't create the opportunities. The only people who can change the opportunity landscape are employers. And we've seen a lot of ventures and incentives. There's a London Progression Collaboration, which is a government proposition to encourage organisations to share their levy with non-levy payers and SMEs, which is great. However, all they can do is advertise it as an opportunity. There is no programme behind that. There is no opportunity specifically behind that. And what we're doing is we're saying that's a great start. And it's quite frankly great for us that the word opportunity and apprenticeship guarantee are being used. But this is the practical end game to those government rhetoric. And I think what we found is that there's lots of organizations who are talking about money, and there are lots of organizations, particularly during BLM and straight after George Floyd, there was lots of companies who said, we're going to give this money towards increasing diversity. We're going to support this with our unspent levy funds, but very few actual programs, actual opportunities, actual ways to support the young people that we all know we want to help. So we believe that the rhetoric from the government and the incentives of the government are great phase one, but this is actually the phase two. This is the actual nitty gritty of making a difference. And that's why we think it needs to be both.
Definitely, I totally agree, and I guess I also have to have a caveat. So, I mean, when we think about government, we think about the legislator, but then of course there are government departments, and luckily we had a phone call from one of the government departments asking about apprenticeships and what they can do more. So, we're on the process of pitching to them around running their apprenticeship program for them. But yeah, those departments have jobs that they create and all that type of stuff, but everyone needs to take part and create opportunities.
Yeah. Another thing that interestingly was sort of slipped under the carpet in the summer budget was that the government have increased the apprenticeship target in public sector from 2.3% to 5%, which is actually quite a big deal, sort of doubling the number. And I know that I've spoken to a couple of organisations who are literally exactly hitting their 2.3%. And so that may be something that if you are either quasi or public sector, that may be something that you also want to consider. I also know that the government, if you are a private sector organisation working either through government funding or supporting as a supplier the government, and I include the NHS within that, so the supplier pool is massive, as part of the tender process now, there will be many questions about what you are doing for increasing opportunities for Generation 2020, how you are spending your apprenticeship levy, and what you are doing to widen access. So I think with a business hat on, there are things that the government are doing to encourage organisations to seriously consider what they're doing in this space.
It goes back to what we have originally asked ourselves and of everybody invited to this webinar. It's, you know, what will your legacy be? How will you look back on 2020 and be really proud of what you've done to actually impact people in a positive way, rather than just talk about what you want to do or that you care. I'd like to go to some questions because we've got a few good questions that have come through.
Yeah.
Some of the points you've touched on, and you might be able to go through more, both of you. This is James Burgess. He said, from his experience in recruitment, both agency side and now in-house, time and time again, the issue comes down to the short-term gains from experienced candidates. Generally, training and mentoring are the additional blockers, and he comes across that's what he comes across when he's trying to implement this route. They're also heavily focusing on how to increase diversity in the workforce. What can he do more to demonstrate the value of apprenticeships to business?
Yeah, so I think the digital skills gap is actually a great way of framing this conversation, which is why we actually had two streams of marketing, either digital skills gap or legacy, because I think they're both equally important. And the issue is, as a recruiter right now, there are not the people out there with the skills that you will need to fill your digital skills gaps. What we are finding is that, albeit the numbers banded around that there'll be 4 million people who are unemployed by the end of the year, only 5% of those people will have the skills that organisations need to move forward and prepare. And predominantly that will be the lack of the digital capability that organisations need. And what we're finding is more and more, and I absolutely think you've called it right, James, in terms of saying the way that headcount is often set up internally is that it is equal. And why would you throw away a headcount on a brand new 18-year-old when you could bring in someone who's an experienced hire? The fact is that right now there are very few specialists with the skills that organizations need in the experienced hire talent market. And I find that that is a great internal sell to say, we can wait 3 months to have someone who has the fundamental capability. Yes, they will still need supervision, but they will have the fundamental capability that we need to start filling those gaps, rather than wait 3 months to hire someone who has a long notice period somewhere else and we would need to bring them in. So I think there is that business case piece that you could be quite clear about in this market. And James, I'll let you talk about the diversity piece.
Yeah, no, James, that was a great question. And, you know, the thing is, each organization is at a very different stage in their diversity journey. So it would require just a quick conversation to, you know, one, understand what you've done in the past in terms of training and mentoring and what the barriers were. The second is to understand, actually, you know, if your organization has currently an apprenticeship program, identify what is the feeling internally about those apprenticeship program, to understand why you may be facing barriers to bringing more apprentices in. You know, if you already have apprentices, it shows that your company already sees value in bringing young talent in. So let's work together to create the solutions to put forward a really strong business case for you.
Thanks, James. That was really useful. Off the back of the digital piece we talked about and why that's a really good business case, Charlie Taylor has asked, are there other areas or departments that these apprenticeships are applicable to? And I know the answer to that, but I'll let you answer it more eloquently, Kate.
Yes, is the short answer. So what we've done in terms of creating our proposition, we had to give it boundaries. So what we've done is we've picked these 4 programs. But if you came to us, I'm not sure where you work, Charlie, but let's say you work at AstraZeneca and said that, you know, that in the next 18 months, you will have a need specifically in a farmer area, then what we can do is work with you to find a standard that would apply to that. Because what we want to do is start that conversation about how you can bring in new talent. So we are very happy, as I said, to forego the majority of our consultative fees so that we can enable you all to move as fast as possible to bring young people into your organisation. So the short answer is yes, there's 258, I think at last count, different subjects that young people can study as an apprenticeship. Obviously, all of those won't be suitable for this level, but we can certainly do that.
And Ruth Runikas has asked, would you require an intake of at least 10 apprentices, or can you work with fewer? You could have one, couldn't you?
Theoretically, you could have one. The difficulty is we don't think that's a very good experience for the young person if you're literally just bringing one person in. It would probably be a more in-depth conversation. Being transparent, it would work better for us, for you to have your own small cohort, whether that was 5 or 10, we could probably work on that, or, you know, up to 30 if you needed that in your organization. But we would give them some pastoral care and support, and as we say, invite them to Generation Success events, and they would have their network internally in Career Builder. But we do believe that one is too few.
I've got a more detailed question from Ruth here as well, that your apprenticeship will last only 12 months and a day for the software developer apprenticeship. It takes 24 months according to NAS or NAS. How would your learners complete it in half the time and be able to get the work-based experience to gain competence?
Yeah, so the Institute for Apprenticeships recommendation is 24 months, but the way that we front load the bootcamp for the software developer, we believe that we can get through the technical capability in a faster time frame. We also continually have projects that the learner is working on. We are delivering this already with existing employees, with other organizations, so that we know that this model works. And the requirement from the government is that when we place people on the program, we need to give them extra time, up to 24 months, if it will take them that long to complete and feel that they're on their own progression route. So we could absolutely make it longer, but what we do is we bring it down to a 12-month program. And in fact, it's 14 months, it's 12 months of learning, and then we have an 8-week period at the end where we prepare them for endpoint assessment. And but that it doesn't include workshops at that point. And then we also will continually be working with the young person so that they are prepared and progressing on their day job with their project work and applying their learning on the day job. So we absolutely are confident that we can complete it in that time frame, and many other apprenticeship training providers also do it in that shorter term frame.
And you also touched upon a point, like we haven't really we should talk more about that, what happens at the end. So, you know,
yes.
in our ideal scenario, there are 3 pathways for the apprentices. Ideally, you may want to keep them on, so you can actually extend the apprenticeship for, you know, another year, or you can employ them as a proper employee within your organization.
And they could do, sorry, just jumping in, they could do the next level. So every program we've got has a secondary level and further levels that they could do if you wanted to make the full career transition. Sorry. Definitely.
I mean, and alternatively, they may decide to go back to university. So we know that this Gen 2020, a lot of young people who traditionally would have gone to further education are saying, no, I'm not going to spend 12,000, 14,000 on tuition fees and other bills to go and study from the beauty of my bedroom and my laptop. So, you know, these young people, if they don't have this opportunity, they will just be hanging around for a year. And, you know, so ideally they would have been trained up, become superstars in your organizations, added value, and if there's no opportunity for them to stay on, they go on to further education and carry on their learning, having become more well equipped for the world of work with this year. I mean, and thirdly, once again, if there is no opportunity in the end state within your organization, then we would support them ongoingly to help them get into employment. We can match them to a mentor. We can continue that pastoral care. I think, one of the issues currently is lots of organizations run apprenticeship programs, and there's never a job guaranteed at the end of it. If there is opportunities, they'll keep them on. But if there's not, then unfortunately, poor apprentices is left on their own to fight to create another opportunity for themselves. But here, because of a holistic focus on that young person, we will make sure that we can continue to support them so that they progress in their career.
And what we're doing, in fact, is on our platform, we're creating an opportunity portal. So that will be with information for them to either apply to go to university, apply to go to another role, to understand. And what you could do as an organization, if you wanted, was to put open opportunities that you had for the next level up, or for people to consider from our pool, and they may not have done an apprenticeship with you, but they may have done one somewhere else. So what we are doing, quite frankly, that doesn't exist yet because we're focused on getting people at the front end of the funnel, but that will be, and that has always been on our roadmap, that there will be opportunities shared with these young people throughout the program. I also predict that although we're very focused right now on having opportunities that exist in Q4 this year, I think what will happen is a lot of young people will either try and go to university and do it virtually, or run out of money is what we find. And then they will come later in the day into our platform because they will realize that this is a great place for them to understand themselves and understand what their opportunities are.
Thank you. I have a question from Christine Holland. Our company has unspent levy, but therein lies the problem. We cannot increase our headcount at the same time as redundancies, which we talked about before, and we cannot afford the salary. I'm sure most organisations are in the same situation. Is there a plan, do you know, for the Treasury to relax the funding rules and allow more flexibility for employee levy pots?
My dream was that Rishi was going to say that organisations could pay 50% of their salary with their levy. He didn't do that. That said, he did say that the changes that they made, i.e. the £2,000 bonus, was going to be reviewed. So I still hope that that's what they'll say, because I think that's a really good point. There's a huge pot of money some people have that if only they could slightly change it and the way that it's looked. The one thing I would say is what we found to be successful when we've spoken to organisations is to look at this more holistically than just a pure recruitment activity. And very often organisations have either a foundation or a CSR budget, and that we can potentially use that creatively and work with you to use that to pay for salaries. And the headcount piece, the reason we've made it a fixed term contract rather than FTE is because there may be, and I realise that every organisation is different, but there may be a way of being more flexible about that as well, and looking at it as more of a contract spend than a headcount hitting activity.
Yeah. And I have a technical question as well, Kate, for you from Charlie again. When would the apprenticeship need to be onboarded, and can you share a list of the programs you support? And Charlie, we can certainly do that afterwards, after the webinar.
That information. So in a perfect world, we would like them to be onboarded and start the program during Q4 of this year, because as James said, otherwise they'll literally just be waiting for an opportunity to show itself. And as we know, the old route of getting a job in a bar or going travelling are closed to them. So we're really looking at a lot of people going on universal credit while they're waiting for something to give them an opportunity.
Definitely. And I was just going to say, on the last question that was asked, I totally 100% agree with Kate. I did a webinar with the Institute of Student Employers, I think it was last week or the week before. And out of that, we're partnering up to do a workshop to help employers think about innovative ways that they can take more risks. And, you know, you've mentioned the current climate, and what Kate said is true. We can have a conversation with you to actually explore ways that we can create these opportunities. So just because you have a headcount freeze right now, it doesn't mean that we can't find a way around it, or can't find a way to create a strong business case for when that headcount restriction is lifted to really put this in place really, really quickly. The worst thing is not to do anything, and then you find that the climate changes, and you're like, okay, what do we do now? We need to be as organizations, we need to get as well prepared as possible for the future of business.
I also think in terms of building that internal business case, the digital skills piece is very valuable, because theoretically, the fact is that there are very few people who will be unemployed and looking for a job in your business with the digital skills that you need, and the data capability that you need, and the future proofing skills that you need. Therefore, even though there is a headcount freeze because you are restructuring, the whole point of the restructure is to ready your business for the future of work. So this is potentially one of the solutions to that challenge.
So it's going back to what you said before, that spend the money now or you'll spend more later. So it's a strategic plan, and it's not necessarily a plan that you should relate to redundancy and how it looks and bringing people back off furlough potentially, and all those changes that are very, very sensitive when you're seemingly bringing someone into the business without a skill set. But yeah, it is a strategic decision, and it's strategic for industry on the whole.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone on the call from Marks and Spencer's today, but Marks and Spencer's tagline for their restructuring project is never the same again. And I think that is what we need to start saying, that phrase. This is not the new normal. It will never be the same again. And we need to be ready for that, exactly to James's point.
Also, Ruth has asked another question, a great question about location. Her organisation's a national organisation. Where are your candidates based? I know, James, a lot of yours are London-centric, but do you cover other locations?
Yeah, so a lot of our candidates are London-centric. One of the things I need to highlight is the fact that we already run recruitment programs. So we run one for an investment bank, and a lot of the candidates who applied for that program came from all over the UK. They applied from all over the UK, came down for the assessment centre. So mostly London-based, but we can have a national reach. And in terms of apprentices, we also have a relationship with Oasis Academy Group, and they have 56 academies across the UK. So when you think about those young people leaving college to go into the world of work, we do have a national coverage in terms of that.
And also we've partnered, although Generation Success will take the lead on the mentoring aspect, we've partnered with Youth Employment UK. So we've got a reach for them that is UK wide, and they are very keen to, and again, will support us in enabling any activity that is outside of a city centre, because what they're saying is this crisis that we're talking about right now in London is exacerbated and was already existing in remoter areas of England. Just to be clear, locations all around England, but only in England. The learners will need to have an English postcode. We haven't partnered in Scotland, Ireland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, because the apprenticeship levy rules are different for that. But we could absolutely and would welcome conversations more broadly than London.
Thank you. We have no more questions at the moment. So we'll close shortly. Do you have any sort of last sentiments that you'd like to convey, James and Kate, and before we follow up with everybody?
One of the, I'm not as so much of a statistician as James, but a stat that really stuck in my brain was that 82% of employees said that they would move organisation if they felt that the organisation that had reached out to them had a better social awareness than the organisation that they were currently working in. And I think that legacy piece and the import and the cost of inaction in this incredibly important time is definitely something to use when you are creating that internal strategic conversation.
I love that. I love that. Great stat as well, Kate.
Thank you.
And I guess my final point is, today we have focused on the greatest action that an employer can make, which is to create a job and create an opportunity for someone to earn money and utilize those funds to provide for their family and for their community. And I know that is tough. That is a tough ask, especially during this period. And one of the things I want to leave you guys here with is, it is tough, but what is our legacy going to be? And the second thing is, even if you feel it is too tough right now to take that greatest action of creating an opportunity, there's other ways that we can do more. So, by talking, we can look at how we can, engage our employee networks to upskill the local community. We can look at how we can, create more shorter term work experience places, which aren't as hard to sell internally. But the key one, the one that really makes the biggest difference, is this big ask. It is the ask that we utilize the unspent levy fund, which is a resource that your company should be looking at how you can utilize to bring in young, ambitious, diverse talent who are, who can add value to your business, that we can help prepare them for your future, succession planning, to fill the gaps in your employee skill sets, to make sure that you as an organization are stronger coming out of the COVID period than when you started. We're asking to form this partnership to make this happen. So do get in touch. Even if it seems like this is a hard ask now, we can have that conversation and build something together.
Thank you so much. That was really valuable. James, thanks so much for your time and input. Kate, as always, it's so good to get an overview and a real insight into how easy this could be. Thanks everybody for joining. We will follow up. We'll send you a recording. We won't bombard you, but we'll send you some information, and you can connect with any of us if you want further information.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Bye.